Resources Committee markup of an energy bill to see if we're going to actually drill in ANWR, if we're going to drill in the Outer Continental Shelf and loosen up our drilling elsewhere in the country. But that sort of begs the question. Right now we're talking about various kinds of oil and gas. Let me just put some context here. In our conventional oil resources, we have about 50 billion barrels that we know about. That includes 10 billion in ANWR. These are in the United States of America. We have some oil sands. Those are very difficult to develop in America. They're different from the oil sands in Canada, where each grain has a little molecule of water, and so the oil comes off the sand just with a little bit of heat. We have about 100 million barrels of oil on the Outer Continental Shelf, and all that adds up to about 225 million barrels of oil that we have available to us today in the United States. Think about that, 225 billion barrels of oil. We now have, and I'm going to pull up a chart here. We have in oil shale about 1.3 let's say that's trillion barrels of oil. I'm sorry, that's not billion barrels of oil, that's trillion barrels of oil in Colorado. In Utah we have about 800 million barrels of oil, and in Wyoming about 500 million barrels of oil. Those are millions. We're not talking about a lousy 225 million barrels in all of our other resources. We're talking about 2.6 trillion barrels of oil that are available to America today in oil shale. Now let's pull up the map if we can here. This is a map of Utah. Idaho's over here in the corner, southwest Wyoming, and northeast Colorado. And you can see the dark green are areas with more intense reserves of oil shale, and the lighter green are areas where you have not quite as dense oil shale. And these are the areas that have the oil that we're just talking about, 1.2 trillion barrels in Wyoming, 800 million barrels in Utah. These reserves are different, and the way to get them out, the way to get the oil out is going to differ between those. Let's talk for just a moment about, oh no, we want to do this one, about why we can be actually talking about producing oil out of shale today, whereas it did not work in the past. In the old days, and over here you see on the side it says past oil shale efforts, we used heat to convert kerogen. That means we used retorts. We broke the shale up and put it into a rotary kiln and heated it up. The problem is you needed enough heat in that rotary kiln to get the kerogen out, but at the same time that was hot enough so that the rock melted into itself, and so you'd have to shut the operation down occasionally and go in with sledgehammers literally and knock the rock out that had melted into itself. Today we use chemistry and minimal heat to convert the kerogen to oil. So that's a profound difference, and there are about 6 different companies, 4 large companies, 2 small companies that are using different kinds of technology to get with a smaller amount of heat to convert that kerogen and take it out of the shale. Kerogen, by the way, is a lot like diesel fuel and comes out of the system very close to that. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but it's really quite good. It's like JP8 diesel fuel. In the old days, we mined this. We did a strip mine or room and pillar mining, and then we brought the shale to the surface to reprocess. Today the focus is on in-situ recovery and conversion. Back in the day, low-quality energy intensive product, low-quality energy intensive product to refine, because you had to put a lot of energy in and it was hard to find. And today you have high-quality, valuable product with minimal cost to refine. And then we were focused on the resource back then. Now we're focused on balanced environmental, technical, and economically sustainable methods. The fact is we've transformed the way we work technologically in the world today, and we can get these resources out of the ground much more cheaply. Let's talk just for a moment about the reserves that we have in the United States, what we use, import to the United States, and the world's reserves. The Saudi Arabians have about 264 billion barrels of reserves that we know about. Canada has about 179 billion barrels of oil. Iran has 138, Iraq 115, and Kuwait 102. The people that supply us oil are Mexico, and these are average barrels per day that we import. So from Canada, we import about 2.43 million barrels of oil. From Mexico, 1.53. From Saudi Arabia, 1.49. From Venezuela, 1.36. And from Nigeria, 1.13. And then we import a great deal more from other countries who export lesser amounts to us as we go. These are not exactly the kind of people that we want to be relying on, except with the exception of Canada, perhaps, and also to some degree Mexico, and that's improving. Can we have the map back up here? Okay. And the last couple of minutes we have before we finish this, let me just say that this is complicated. The natural resources are complicated, and the technology is complicated, but we've advanced dramatically in our knowledge and understanding of how to do that. We have now today, for the first time in 30 years, a commercial test going on here in eastern Utah of how to get oil shale out of shale. And we think that test will be done about September 15th, and the projection is that we'll be able to get oil out of shale for $30 a barrel. Now consider this, trillions of barrels of oil at about $30 a barrel. That's profound. I think that is going to actually be lower than $30 a barrel, and I'm about to introduce a bill that will allow the president to cut through the permitting processes and allow us to develop our oil shale in a reasonable time using reasonable understanding of the technology and the environmental impacts, so that we can actually bring that shale to market, bring down the cost of oil, stop funding our enemies in Iran and Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, and start producing oil in America. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.